something that I was really pleased to have picked up. Hi everyone, it's James here. How are you all doing? Welcome to another video. So just a quick vinyl finds video. I've got a lot of stuff to show. I'm going to break it down over the course of a series of videos rather than doing it all in one, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So just 5 things to show today, all of which have a bit of a progressive slant to them, shall we say. 2 records by the same artist coming up first. This is Steve Hillage and the album Fish Rising, which I've got a feeling is his first solo album. I could be mistaken. Do correct me if I'm wrong. There's Steve on the back. You can see there's quite a large band he's got here with him. And, you know, Steve Hillage was this absolute stalwart, I guess, of the kind of art rock, progressive rock scene in the UK. Very influential musician. I first became aware of him in the 90s with his work with the band or the outfit System 7. And that's when he was getting more into the kind of electronic, acid trance kind of thing. It's quite interesting listening to his early records because you can definitely hear the seeds of that sound. He's got some kind of emulator or synthesizer in the sound which burbles away to itself, you know, playing little program loops, and it sounds like the stuff that was around in the 90s, you know, bands like System 7, also, you know, Ozric's Tentacles, Eat Static, that kind of thing. It's a psychedelic sound, very, very psychedelic. I think Steve Hillage is probably more genuinely psychedelic than a lot of bands that get called psych. You know, it's more than just having a wah-wah pedal and, you know, a few daft lyrics. Steve Hillage's music seems to push at the frontiers of perception. It's trippy music, it's head music, and not an artist that I've ever particularly gone after. I found these 2 records in the wild and they were a good price, so I thought I would grab them, and I'm pleased I did. Not all of it works for me. Both these records I'm going to show, they're kind of like 85% really good. I tend to find he has a self-indulgent side which occasionally loses me. His music is very busy, it's very layered, it's very textured, it's very dense. There's lots going on, and it works best for me when there are strong themes emerging and the vocal lines, you know, coming through. But occasionally it can get a bit nebulous for me, but still I'm going to persevere with it. So this one, Fish Rising, like I said, from 1975. And then this one, this is from quite a bit later in his career, I think, 1978 actually, on Virgin Records, and this is Green. And this is actually a promo, a limited edition green vinyl promo, which is quite nice. So there we go. And this album again is very trippy, head music, all the things that I just said, you know, apply to this one too. More so, I'd say. It's got a more trippy, abstract kind of feel to it. This album is produced or co-produced by Nick Mason. It's produced by Nick Mason from Pink Floyd and Steve Hillage himself. And I mean, you can see from the track listing here, you know, UFO over Paris, Ley Lines to Glaston, Crystal City, Activation Meditation. I think it's the final song on this record, the glorious Om riff, and maybe Activation Meditation as well. It really comes through in the end. I find with Steve Hillage a lot of the time, he'll go through a period on an album of meandering around a little bit. It's almost like he's gathering his forces, and then he'll come through with just a really, propulsive kind of, almost like a jam, and that's what happens at the end of this record. Really good. I really enjoyed this one actually. So this one, it's got a bit of a sci-fi theme to it. This one was more kind of nautical, if anything. It sort of reminded me thematically a little bit of Rock Bottom by Robert Wyatt, you know, the Salmon Song, Salmon Pool, Solomon's Atlantis, Swimming with the Salmon, King of the Fishes. Definitely a bit of a seafaring theme on this one, whereas that one is more kind of, outer space. But they're both quite psychedelic, and just nice thing to get into the collection. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to pursue Steve Hillage much beyond this because he's got such a vast back catalogue, but definitely a very forward-looking musician, very ahead of his time. Okay, so winding back 3 years now to 1975 for the next pickup, and this was an interesting record. This is Vangelis and his album Heaven and Hell, which comes from 1975. Picked this up from my local antiques centre a couple of weeks back. I don't generally pick up a lot of Vangelis records because I do find that they're quite commonly available and they're also quite affordable too, so I have to watch out for my shelf space. I do view him as a bit of a slippery slope artist, but I couldn't resist this one because it looked really interesting, and sure enough it was a really enjoyable and interesting record. There he is there, surrounded by keyboards in his inimitable fashion. So my understanding is, from my brief research that I've done on this record, that it was his first big commercial success actually. He'd done an album called Earth in 1973, and then he built his own studio in London called Nemo Studios, and he went into the studio and he wrote and recorded this album really quickly. A meditation on the nature of dualism, would you believe? So you've got one side which is heaven, and one side which is hell. The heavenly side is, it's got loads of choir on it, big kind of bombastic choral sections. The first time I listened to it I did slightly struggle with it, and that is because when I was growing up my dad used to listen to quite a lot of, you know, big bombastic choral music, and I never used to like it. I used to find it quite intimidating, and used to clang you over the head, you know. But on second listen, I did enjoy the way, you know, he mixes and mashes it together with his electronic keyboard. So you've got this very interesting mixture. Essentially, you know, it's prog rock. It's a mixture of classical choral music with synthetic textures, synthesizers. It's a very, very creative and interesting piece or pair of pieces. Also significant in being the first time that Vangelis actually collaborated with John Anderson. John Anderson appears on side one of this record and wrote the lyrics too for the song So Long Ago, So Clear. So that was the first time that Vangelis and John worked together. So good pickup. I was really pleased that I grabbed it, and like I said, he's a slippery slope artist for me. If I was able to find some more shelf space in the next couple of years, which is not beyond the realms of possibility, I could see myself starting to pick up more records by him. So anyway, Vangelis from 1975. We're going to stay in the mid-70s. In fact, we're going to stay in 1975 for the first of the two records that I've got to show you to finish the video. And again, these are both by the same artist. This is an artist that I've been collecting very, very slowly for such a long time. I do see his records about the place. They're not always in great condition, but this one kind of was a little mini grail for me, really. And it is the album Initiation by Todd Rundgren. This was the one based on a seminal New Age text whose name escapes me for a moment. I'll put it down below. And it was Todd, you know, in full flow again, but really, really embracing the synthesizers. You know, he'd done Something Anything, he'd done A Wizard, A True Star. Those records are great examples of what, you know, whatever you want to call it, mid-1970s pop music, going into kind of heavy pop rock psych. This is the record where he starts to seriously get into the synthesizer, particularly on side two, which is, I think it's an all-instrumental piece, a treatise on cosmic fire, which goes through various movements. It's completely, it's totally around the bend, you know. I mean, you put your headphones on and you don't exactly drift off to it. It's kind of, it's like being caught and whirled around in loads of little eddies and whirlpools of noise and sound and fury. Very busy, very, very complicated music. You can kind of, you know, as usual with mid-1970s Todd, you get the sense of somebody really trying to push back the barriers, not just of music and of the studio, but of his own consciousness, you know, his own mind. It's almost like he's kind of deliberately trying to drive himself mad making music. Side two is songs. The great kind of a cappella synth song Born to Synthesize is on here. You know, it's fairly tongue-in-cheek, I guess, in a sense. Really strong songwriting though. You've got The Death of Rock and Roll, which is a great big, you know, bombastic Todd piece. And this was a record that I streamed it last summer whilst on holiday in Croatia, and it was partly as a result of Jeff Calico Silva, who did a Todd Rundgren rankings video, and he put this album at the top of his list, and it wasn't one that I was particularly aware of, you know, and I've been looking for a copy of it, so I was delighted when one popped up, and it was a very good price actually. I don't think I paid more than £5 for this. Just as a footnote, this record famously, it was released during a plastic shortage in the US. There wasn't enough vinyl for Todd to make it a double album. So he had to do some anti-bass EQing at the mastering stage in order to make sure he could fit it all onto one album. And as a result, it's a fairly bassless record. You know, it's as usual for Todd Rundgren. It's got a bit of a tinny sound to it, but perhaps more so than usual. And he had to put a little warning on the album. Technical note: due to the amount of music on this disc, 2 points must be emphasised. Firstly, if your needle is worn or damaged, it will ruin this disc immediately. Secondly, if the sound does not seem loud enough on your system, try re-recording the music onto tape. So, yeah, it's lacking a bit of bass. I think Jeff mentioned that there is maybe a Japanese CD version of it, which puts that right to an extent. I'm not sure how expensive that is, but that's an interesting footnote anyway. So Todd Rundgren, Initiation, and then I also picked up, I don't think it was on the same day, it might have been on the same day, it was from Heightside Records, my local market traders here in Lancaster. I also picked up his next album, which is called Faithful. So this one came out in 1976. Now this is not a Utopia album, but I think it's got the same musicians that ended up being in Utopia: Roger Powell, John Siegler, John Wilcox. This record is split again conceptually into side 1 and side 2. One side is Todd's note-for-note cover versions, really, of famous rock songs and pop songs, done with incredible fidelity to the originals. We've got Happenings 10 Years Time Ago, which is the Yardbirds, Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys, Rain by the Beatles, Most Likely You Go Your Way and I'll Go Mine by Bob Dylan, If 6 Was 9, Jimi Hendrix, and then Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles again. And he does them incredibly faithfully. All the vocal arrangements, all the instruments, just done kind of note for note. Not sure how I feel about it. It's a bit of a disconcerting exercise listening to the pieces, you know, to the songs, because they do sound so like the originals, but by the same token, they don't sound anything like them, you know. So when you're listening to Todd doing all the harmonies in Rain, you think, yeah, it doesn't quite sound right, this. So yeah, not completely sold on it, but it was certainly an interesting listen. Almost like being in a parallel universe, I guess. The other side of the record is just original songs, and I've only had a couple of listens, but they seem like pretty, you know, impressive mid-1970s Todd epics. So I shall look forward to getting to know this record in more detail over the coming months. So and I will do a Todd video at some point. In fact, I've got 2 Todd videos in mind to do. So keep your eyes posted for those. Got loads more finds. I've got pop rock stuff, I've got jazz, I've got rock jazz fusion, all sorts of things. So I'll have to try and do these in separate instalments in order to make this video not too long. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching as usual. It is appreciated. Take care. Bye.